Oh, Chubbicorn.
Hi, I'm Mr. Sainamont, and today we're going to draw a variety of sword poses, starting with what I call the Conan the Barbarian pose. So I'll have a character whose head is facing us, but the body is turned, and then we'll have both legs will be pretty much balanced to create a center of gravity that's just dropped straight down from the head. So you'll see how one leg is straight back, one leg, this leg coming forward has a nice bend to it. And then we will position the sword above the character's head. So I'll have this front arm going across the body and then grabbing onto the sword. So the sword actually goes in front of the forehead, and then the other arm will be grabbing further down the handle. And by the way, I'm using the proportions that are seen in my earlier videos, so superhero poses, wizard poses, etc. So we have like a character that's maybe 4.5 heads tall. This next one is, I think, a defensive pose. I can't remember the resource I drew this one from. But you can see the gesture line leans over to the left, and then we'll have the torso. It's kind of like a pose from underneath the person. So the head is looking up, and then one leg is straight, similar to the last pose, but character's turning, and then that other leg is bent just to counterbalance the overall body weight. And then we'll have this is like a one-handed pose, so this arm is holding up the sword, so the sword is creating like a bit of a shield diagonally, and then the other arm I just have it supporting the shoulder, so just kind of laying down like that. All right, this next one is a variation, a little more dynamic, Conan the Barbarian pose. So you have the character's head turning a little bit like a three-quarter pose, and then everything else is pretty much the same, except we're going to have that leg coming down forward more into like the foreground. And watch the difference with the back leg. The back leg is way back, so you can see how the difference between pose 1 and 3 is. So this is a little more dynamic. It's great for like a like a title or a cover image or something. And then same idea, we have the hand holding the sword across the forehead, but it's slightly tilted down, and then we just have one arm just kind of hanging back. Okay, this next one is like at the end of battle, the character is going to be putting his or her sword away. So you see that gesture line sweeping from the torso down to the character's left leg. There's a little bend in the torso. Character's looking slightly down. And then we'll draw that leg following the gesture line. And the other leg is just kind of out straight, so it's a very balanced pose. No bending in the knees or anything. One hand will be on the sword, putting it back into its sheath. I think it's called a sheath, I don't know. All right, so putting the sword back, or actually this could be pulling the sword out. I guess it could go either way. It could go like at the beginning of battle or putting the sword. I like the idea of putting the sword away. I think it looks more like final and a little more relaxed, like the battle's done and then they're just getting rid of the weapon. Okay, this next one is going to be a sword above the head. This time the character is about to fight. We have one foot going out forward, the other one bending a little bit. You could argue it's another variation of the first and third pose, but this one's a little bit different. Character is facing an enemy off to the right, and then there you go. All right, this next one, let's have the character getting stabbed. Let's have our sword fighter taking a direct wound right in the center of the torso. So you can see now the gesture line is curled over, and I drew those like little stick figure legs just to block in where I want like one knee that's buckling under the, like as the body kind of gives way, and then the other leg is still straight, but the body looks like at any moment it can just collapse. And the character is so shocked we'll have the arms at the sides. So we have like both hands just completely, no attempt at defense, just completely stabbed. Maybe they were surprised by some type of move or something, or maybe they were hit by an arrow. But they're dropping their sword, and you can see those little 3 lines above their head, like they're surprised or something. All right, this next one is a character who is maybe again after the battle, similar to pose 4, but this one the character is like dramatically surveying the scene. So it could be also a beginning pose too, but I like to again think of it as the character is more relaxed. So the fighting is done. We have one shoulder tilted up, one down, and then one hand is just free. The other one's holding the sword, and the sword is at the character's side. And notice how we are below the character. We're looking up at the character's head, so they're looking beyond or over our heads, like they're elevated, above our level. All right, let's do, this is an interesting pose. Can't remember the source of this one, but it is it could be playful. It could be the character is about to do like a baseball swing with the sword. So you have one leg that is foreshortened, this upper leg facing us, and you can see that leg is foot's off the ground. And then you have the hips tilted up, and it's like a 2-handed sword hold. And almost like the character maybe doesn't know what they're doing. It's kind of a silly pose. So I don't know. It could be preparing to swing or caught off balance, caught off guard. And here we have a stabbing position. This would have been great lined up with pose 6 if we had this character just thrusting the sword directly into the other character's chest. So if you want to do that, maybe arrange them to where this one is making the victorious jab. So just arms straight out, and then the other arm is kind of tucked behind the torso. You see the hand emerging there. And then we'll draw, the weight is pretty balanced, but the character kind of has a forward motion. All right, now let's see, moving on to pose 10. So pose 10 is like a swipe. It's like a post. The character has this contrapposto. You see how the shoulders are dipped one way, the hips are the other, legs are crossed, and then we'll actually have the arm going across the body right here, and then holding the sword down low. So the character could have just swiped from up diagonally across the body. All right, let's move on to a new page. And this time we have a character that is on the ground, assumed that like the character is wounded. We'll draw maybe like a little wound, but first I'll just draw in the torso. And then I decided to do torso first because I wanted to focus on the shoulders overlapping the head and then figure out where the arms are gonna go. I think this one was a combination of different resources. So then we have a leg going straight out, and I'm really making sure to make that, notice how the curves, the foot is really large, the foot is closer to us, and then the knee and the hip joint are overlapping to really emphasize that that leg is coming towards us. And you can see for size comparison, the other leg is further away, it's much smaller. And just for added effect, we have the dropped sword next to the character. There's a little blood splat on the chest, and the character is pretty much dying or mortally wounded and saying some last words to the opponent. All right, so this one is like a medium shot. This is a great one, the really foreshortened sword. So this is just going to be an upper body pose, focusing on the sword overlapping the upper arm, coming straight toward the viewer. So instead of the Conan the Barbarian, where it's going across the forehead, this time the sword is going straight at us, facing us. It's not an easy pose to do. I would really suggest using a ruler and drawing a straight line through both hands to get the direction of the sword down right, and then you can see how widening the sword as it comes forward to really emphasize that foreshortening. So this is a really good dramatic, like for a comic, a scene where the hero is about to stab or do something, or maybe an enemy. This could be a villain pose too. All right, next pose is going to be, this is like an upward swipe. So we have a dramatic short gesture line because the legs will not really line up with where the torso is. The legs are kind of running counter to where the torso is going. So one leg is forward, one leg is further back. You can see how one's lower, one's higher. That really adds to a sense of depth. And then we have the arm swiping up, bend of the elbow, and then the sword. It's tricky when drawing a character with such a large head. You have to really make sure the limbs can go over the head. Like if you have a character who is styling their hair, putting on a baseball hat, you want to make sure that their arms can reach the top of their head. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing proportionally, deciding on your character's proportions. All right, this next one is a downward sword strike. And this one could be like an aerial pose. It also could be a pose that is grounded. So we just have a sword going straight down. And then just for added effect, we'll have the legs, again, one further back, that's higher up. And then the closer one is lower. So there's a pretty simple downward sword strike. Again, the character could be in the air or on the ground. All right, next we have a character who is proud. So this could be just, a guard. It could be a sword master who is being introduced. Just a very dramatic pose, arched. The torso is like kind of puffed out, chest puffed out, hand on the sword, on is it the pommel, the end of the handle? I should have studied my sword vocab. All right, one more. Let's draw a sword swipe that is back. So the character is doing a one-handed sword swipe. And again, we have that leg that's closer, lower on the paper, and then we have a leg that's up high. And I have that arm, most of it's hidden by the head, and it's foreshortened, going away from us. There's the sword. And then we have a very nicely drawn little bent forearm there. And then a sword swipe. Nice dramatic sword swipe there. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.